Welcome, everybody, and thank you for being here today. We are here to celebrate the 5th annual all-teen issue of Inlandia's online literary journal, Inlandia, A Literary Journey. My name is Katie Porter, and I'm Executive Director of Inlandia, but I'm also a poet, and I was once a teen poet, just like our friends here today. And before we get started, I do want to let you know that closed captioning is available if you want to click on the CC icon at the bottom of your screen. And what else? We are in view only mode. So just if you have questions, please just type them into the Q&A box and we'll get to them later. And we have a number of readers to get through today, but we're really proud of this issue. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so that you can see it. Hang on, because I've clicked away from it. Here we go. So the all-teen issue, this is our 5th annual. It began about 5 years ago with our then editor, managing editor for the online journal, Victoria Waddle. She was a librarian for a high school for many years, a teacher librarian, and she loves teens, and as I do. And we decided that we wanted to do something special for our teens. So we started this journal for teens, guest edited by teens. So 5 years later, we're still going strong. Every year in the fall, we have an open issue open to everybody, but the spring is always dedicated to teens, and it's chock full of good works. So please do take a look. I will put a link in the chat, but it's really simple, just inlandiajournal.net. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our very first reader, Maya Adenahan. And Maya is zooming in from Rancho Cucamonga. Welcome, Maya. You have the floor.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. So I'm just going to read some of the poems that are in the magazine. My first one is called Sun Eyes. A boy lies down in the sand. Whenever he cries, he says his eyes have cracks in them. Looking into the sun, his eyes start leaking not tears, but whites of silkra, blacks of pupils, browns of melanin, lathering his cheeks and emptying his sockets. He fingers the graves in his face for an answer, any answer. Keep moving forward. So he crawls through the sand into the sea where only tears are seen. My next poem is called Oppressive Dreams. It kind of ties in with Sun Eyes, the poem I read before. I tried walking into the sunlight, but the rays looked like knives. After enough cuts, I would surely die. I wish I could survive past the cuts. For every lie, every misstep, every dismissive remark, every glance, every cut, and feel happy about it. I want to thrive in that golden sun, even if I knew it would kill me. And finally, for my last poem, it's not connected to any of the other poems I read, but it's called Cosmic Meltdown. The soft billowing whispers of stars distract me from the torrent under my feet. A high so high I forgot there was ground. Yet no matter how far I was, that torrent found a way to my throat and swelled. I looked back at space, blues, violets, and a loss of senses. That's all I need right now. You said there's nowhere else to go but up. So please, Don't let me drag myself down. And that is all of my poetry.
Thank you so much, Maya. I'm very happy to have you here today. So we're going to, our next reader, we're going to have Lauren Cruz de Armas. And let me bring Lauren on screen. Lauren is zooming in from Rancho Cucamonga. Oh no, La Quinta, sorry. Let's see. So welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. I actually wanted to say that, well, first of all, thank you for having me. And also, though I am originally from La Quinta, I'm actually zooming from Cathedral City right now. Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. And 2 of my artworks are featured in the magazine, and I would like to share them with you all today. And here they are. Here is the slide. So I prepared. I am screen sharing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So this is it. And a bit about me. My name is Lauren Cruz de Armas, and I'm an artist, poet, writer, and a splotch of dreams itching to come true. My experience with art has always been present, and I remember watching old home films, and in one I would wake up and immediately go to my drawing table, because as long as I had my marker in hand, everything was beautiful. This passion of mine still continues, and I sometimes find myself looking at objects or people, knowing how I would draw them and how their figure would convert to movement. My art that is featured here in the magazine is Going Through It All and the Extent of Reality. Going Through It All, inspiration and meaning. I am proud of this work, and I'm proud that it got its own recognition and that it now has life of its own. The inspiration for this was an article I saw about domestic abuse cases during quarantine and the movie Moxie. These inspired me to make a collage with a similar meaning, sexual abuse survivors. The newspaper around her head represents all the different opinions and talk people are having around her, and the person on the right shoulder was supposed to represent an angel. She is crying, and I added oil pastels on her face and knuckles to give the impression of bruises and blood. The words and letters around her head, as in here, and the I'm not fine written on her arm, are all meant to represent the horridness she's going through at this time and the state of her mental health. My second artwork is The Extent of Reality, and this one is not as emotionally charged as Going Through It All, and its origin is actually a funny story. My art teacher and I were having an art lesson, and she asked me to grab a shoe for this drawing, and I grabbed my shoe, and voila! People have wondered whether the hand is holding the shoe or the shoe is crushing the hand. And I'm here to say that the shoe is crushing the hand. It could represent power and it could represent hurt. It is really up to the viewer and their experiences in life. And it is a drawing that came out of a funny origin, and it took on a new life to represent social issues. When naming this drawing, I just let whatever I wanted come into my head. And when I thought of this one, I thought, perfect, and here we are. And also, thank you. I want to say a very big thank you to Inlandia for choosing my art, my beautiful parents for having me, my uncle, and our COE for presenting me an amazing opportunity, and my 8th grade writing teacher, because without her, I would not be here right now. So, and thank you all for your time.
All right. Well, let me add where am I? Here we go. So thank you, Lauren. That was really wonderful.
You.
It's nice to hear the inspiration behind some of these pieces too. So our next reader is Avery Garcia, and Avery is zooming in from Fontana. So welcome, Avery.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to share 2 poems. The first one is called Barn Owls. Shoes stuck to a battered bridge, stuck not with blackened gum or slushy syrup, but with the feeling of a moment. The kind that asks if you want to be a vole or a bird, if you want to slowly suffocate or to fly like an angel. Above the frozen river that dwells quietly below, cracked and wise from seeing many such things, the voice calls out, "Remember me, God, oh someone please remember me. Remember my pain and remember my sorrow. Please let me live on long after tomorrow." Even still, those numb fingers start to slip, called after by the rattle of the icy chain link fence that they once clung to, the final friend, fated now only to watch as a silhouette carves out a piece of the sky, carves out a piece of the ice, then carves out a piece of the highway, lining it up with screams of blue, white, and red, and a whole crowd of Langolier eyes to eat it all away. From under the bridge fly out two barn owls, perfect and white. They count the angels everywhere, on the bridge, on the ice, in the river, everywhere. They say we're all doomed. And then my second poem is The Right Here. Burn me into clarity, let my hair start to sear, as all that remains is infinity, and there is no one left here. Fill me with shower thoughts, half shots in the dark, that ring and clatter with the soul of music in them. Tattered they lie like bow-legged children, always asking why and how, over and over again, until I dare to make the voyage back into the Cyclope's den. Save me from my progeny, pluck their heads off with wire, make them sing in harmony, so that at last I can retire. And those are my two. Thank you.
Thank you, Avery. That was great getting to hear those out loud. Okay, so next up, we have Saeed Khaled. And let me find you in my lineup here. Welcome. And if you could say what city you're zooming in from, that would be great.
Yes, I am zooming in from Fontana, California.
All right, welcome. Nice to have you.
All right, thank you. So one of my poems was picked, so that was a huge honor for me, and I would like to present that today. So the poem's called Leaving a Legacy, and I'll read it out right now. Before I get out of bed, my aspirations well fed. Look out the window to the sky, wondering what happens after goodbye. What shall I leave behind for others who have been so kind? How shall I remain? My value shall not be in vain. At work, helping as I can, trying to be the best man. My personal time also spent making sure no one is discontent. For my legacy defines me, spreading like roots in a tree, filling me with much glee to showcase who I want to be. To showcase who I want to be, filling me with much glee, spreading like roots in a tree. For my legacy defines me, making sure no one is discontent. My personal time also spent trying to be the best man, at work helping as I can. My value shall not be in vain. How shall I remain? For others who have been so kind, what shall I leave behind? Wondering what happens after goodbye, look out the window to the sky. My aspirations well fed before I get out of bed. So speaking on like the inspirations and stuff for this, so I decided to do like the type of poem that goes the same way whether you're reading backwards or forwards, because we literally just learned that like a couple months ago in AP literature, and I thought that was like really interesting as a concept, so I wanted to try it out, because usually I never do that when writing poems, so I thought it would just be interesting. And as far as like the topic and the theme of the poem, it's mostly just because I'm a senior, so thoughts like kept racing through my head, like once I leave, like is anyone going to remember me, like what, and even if they do, like what am I going to be remembered for? How will people remember me? Like, oh yeah, I remember Saeed from high school, he was like this, you know, like is it be a positive light, negative light, like what will I be when I'm no longer here, or really not, at least not physically here. So yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, I could hear the form as you were reading it. And that's very interesting. So let's see. Good work. So our next reader is Madison Colt Farber, and Madison is zooming in from Loma Linda. Madison, let's see. Oh, I think maybe Madison fell off. Maybe they're having some internet trouble. Okay, so we'll have to come back to Madison. So our next reader then will be Briseida Lopez. So welcome, Briseida. And Briseida is zooming in from San Bernardino.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name, as said before, is Briseida Lopez, and today I'll be presenting my piece. And it is called "Here's the Thing About Doppelgangers: They Don't Exist." I personally believe in the paranormal. Ghosts, demons, witches, and cryptids all have to exist. What else explains the creaky floorboards in my living room? I mean, it could be my brother getting his glass of water, but we can't just expect it to be him every single time. Monsters have to exist. They have to be everywhere. Social media can only lie about so many TikTok videos. But I have a favorite cryptid. Ghosts are overrated. Demons, they are literally in every horror movie to exist. I'm talking about the real scary monsters that lurk at night. Ones that not many creepypastas talk about because they're so scary. I'm talking about doppelgangers. In the small chance that you have no idea what doppelgangers are, they are basically versions of yourselves from different dimensions that come to take over your current life. It doesn't sound scary at first, but think about it. How do they replace you? Well, they usually kill you and they do it in unimaginable ways. It could be as simple as rigging your car so that it conveniently loses control over its brakes near a cliff, or it could just be a clone murdering you just to take over your place. Simple things, really. But there have even been cases where these doppelgangers look exactly like your future self, which is rumored to have actually happened to Catherine the Great. The story goes that one day, one of Catherine's servants had woken her up in a panic, telling her that there was someone in her throne room. When she asked the servant what the intruder looked like, the servant simply said that it was a copy of Catherine herself. Catherine dashed to the throne room, where she found the spitting image of herself sitting on the throne. But something was different. The intruder looked exactly like Catherine, except she was slightly skinnier, paler, and had dark circles under her eyes. She almost looked dead. In an instant, Catherine told her guards who had been waiting for orders to fire at the intruder. At the first impact, the monster simply tried and faded away right on the spot where she was sitting and turned to mist. A few weeks after the incident, Catherine the Great died from a stroke and looked exactly like the intruder who sat on her throne. Creepy, right? Clearly, doppelgangers are no good. They are known to be evil and threatening. But why are we trying to be doppelgangers in today's society? Don't get me wrong. We aren't jumping dimensions or trying to murder our clones. What I mean is that we are beginning to copy one another. One of the most important things about doppelgangers is that they look exactly like the person they want to take over. But aren't we doing the same thing nowadays? Everybody wears the same brands, has the same hairstyle, and somehow manages to wear a hoodie once a week. We are all managing to head towards the same style and physical characteristics because we want to be like doppelgangers, copying the people we think have a better life than we do. Let's break this down into three different things. First, everyone in society is doing their best to aim for the same image. Second, there are benefits to being different. And third, we should be different to protect ourselves from the future arrival of our doppelgangers. For starters, let me give you the basic outfit of today's teens. Preferably black sneakers with white laces, dark blue ripped jeans that show above and below your knees, and a weird dark t-shirt that is somehow related to music. If you walk down the street right now, this is what you'll be seeing. Sneakers, jeans, and a t-shirt. It's very rare to see anyone wearing anything outside of that outfit. But the question is, why? Everyone is entitled to their own closets and they are able to wear whatever they wish. But why does it have to match everyone else's clothing style? If you go on social media and scroll through all of the recommended pictures and videos, you'll see the same outfits pop up on your favorite creators and influencers, the successful people, the ones who made it. Meanwhile, you are just taking the time to look at them and their flourishing life. So, if you want to make a difference, you can't be the same anymore. You have to dress just like that person with your sneakers, jeans, and t shirt. Don't forget to add bruh to every sentence and mention a meme in every conversation you have. But don't stop there. Why don't you listen to the songs that the creator just happened to play on the radio? It would mean that you are now similar to that person, to their image, and to their success. This is the reason why people today look alike. We want to look like the people we see being successful every day and hope that we can strive to be just like them. But we have to be honest with ourselves. We will never be like Bella Porch, Kanabi Lame, or the D'Amelio siblings. These individuals have a different life than most of us and have luck in their favor. Just because we dress like them, talk like them, joke like them, doesn't mean that we will ever become them or inherit their success. Social media is truly only a source of entertainment. It isn't meant to be the pathway to success. Everybody has different abilities and skills, different styles and tastes, yet we never adapt to what we want anymore. We want what everyone else has. We must understand that we don't need to look like everyone else or look like the most successful people to be considered successful. If that's what we wanted to do, why don't we dress in similar suits to politicians and lawyers or wear medical coats and equipment to be the new doctors in the future? But even if we did do that, it wouldn't work. We'd be wasting our time and money on meaningless efforts to try to become the new successful version of the person we want to be. Instead of striving to be somebody else, why don't we just strive to be ourselves? You know, before it's too late. This isn't a threat, it's just a warning. Consider that we are all matching everyone else, wearing the same jeans and t shirts. But what if we can't stop? Wanting to belong is almost an addiction. Teenagers know all the new songs, trends, and memes, and we dedicate our lives to wanting to be seen as the same as our peers. But this harms us in the end. Teenagers have the record for the worst mental health amongst age groups, and we face higher rates of anxiety, depression, and stress because our brains aren't completely developed yet. School is one thing, but the desire to be seen as normal is another. I've noticed that the people who have a different look or different perspectives about life are often the most successful as well as the ones who gain the most popularity. I'm not claiming that you will automatically be super successful when you change your hair color and start wearing robes instead of t-shirts. The people who have worked hard to make a difference have always made their way in history. Malala Yousafzai is a feminist icon who has a different set of opinion and perspective. She questioned the discrimination she and other girls in her country had to face, going out and getting an education instead of staying at home, basically becoming a rebel. At the age of 17, she got the Nobel Peace Prize and has since met with world famous leaders and works with organizations to help children and women everywhere also live outside the norm. The difference she had was stepping out of feminine roles and stereotypes in her country. Stephen King decided that instead of writing informational pieces or the same romance novels, he would instead write the most bone chilling and spine tickling tales that would make you shiver from horror. His difference? He built a world of terror instead of your average stability. Queen Elizabeth of England shattered the views on women, who were simply seen as people who took care of their families, and children. She proved that women could be rulers and definitely made a difference in the world. Her courage led to a shift in the world and changed everyone's perspective on life while also being very successful. All of these individuals have been completely different from their peer groups. Here's what you need to understand. If you act the same as everyone else, if you look the same as everyone else, you will go unnoticed in society. and you won't be the successful person you want to be. You can't simply become the next best YouTuber by dressing up like PewDiePie or Markiplier. You can't become the next pop singer after singing like Ariana Grande or Justin Bieber. These individuals have already set a name for themselves with their own individuality. You have to work your own style. And what would be the purpose of becoming the next Taylor Swift or Shawn Mendes? Wouldn't you want your own title? Doesn't it seem pointless to work so hard to grow in success and fame when all you get is to be the person you took inspiration from? Finally, let's consider what will happen when you actually come across your doppelganger. If you have taken my advice and decided to be a little different, your doppelganger is surely going to have a hard time completing its mission. Instead of immediately trying to kill you, it will instead let you have time to stall and get yourself to safety because it's trying to learn about your new form. In all seriousness, what I'm saying is that you should be different to stray from the same. There is harm from trying to be the same as your peers. You not only increase your stress and anxiety, but also develop self hate and lower self esteem. People burn out from trying to mimic the rest of society, constantly worrying about whether they will fit in. It would be like trying to memorize an entire speech that you have to present to your class in 2 hours. Sounds horrible, right? You are worried about trying to memorize this perfect speech and that you might even mess it up when you try to manage to memorize it. Plus, it would be horrible if your classmates made fun of the way you give your speech. The constant pressure and peering eyes would make anyone snap in half from the stress. It's horrible. But we do that to ourselves every day. Everyone has done lots of things to look good in public and in front of friends. But when you mess up the thing you want to show off, you just feel heartbroken, hurt, and exhausted because you have kept that act up for so long. Why should you feel pain for something that doesn't matter? Maybe you shouldn't be doing the things that will only end up hurting you mentally and maybe even physically. It's time to change this horrible habit that we have. I know it's hard since you want to be seen as this awesome person, but you already are. The way you dress, it doesn't matter. The way you act, it doesn't matter. The way that you express yourself doesn't matter. As long as you do your best to become the best that you can be, you will be successful. And you won't have to worry about your doppelganger taking over your life anytime soon. Thank you.
Good work. Thank you, Preseda. I think a lot of people could
Thank you.
take some notes from that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So our next reader is going to be Alessandra Pimentel. And Alessandra is zooming in from Menifee. So welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm going to be presenting two of my works. One's a poem, that's going to be the first one. The second one's going to be a short story. My first poem is called Is This Magic? Gently I press your keys to play a soothing sound, replacing the rhythm I ache for each moment, humming the tunes that dance in the air, releasing my own self to let you see my deepest secrets. Is this magic? I flip your pages and taking each page as my own life, fantasizing a life where I live inside your wonderful world, where I shall stop flipping through the story but instead write my own. You became my haven, my refuge, where only I could ever go to. Could this be magic? You bring me pain as my fingers drop the pen, held so tightly between my fingers where I feel you'll reveal me. But this pain is so loving and unprejudiced, for I know my true self will always be hidden sullenly with you. My hands are stained with ink, the ink that doesn't estimate me and the paper that harkens. Is this magic? Yet when you're stuck in reality, magic ceases to exist. Your mind yearns for it to be true, that somewhere in this wretched world there's hope in the happiness you find. Because how could such star-striking emotions occur? How could I ever be sincerely happy? Perhaps it is magic. And that was my first poem. And now I'm going to read my short story. And it's called The Stars That Shine for Us. As every citizen passed by on the messy streets of Italy, Lorenzo stood in the crowd, drowning in a sea of people, yet still feeling like an outcast. The sun gleamed on the soothing waves offshore, the shine reflecting on the streets. Each individual crossed the streets to continue working and get through life because that was one's purpose: study, work, and die. But Lorenzo couldn't quite grasp the concept. How could life be so tedious? There has to be something more. Even in Italy, where everyone was unique, all seemed to have the same purpose. He found it so hard to handle the reality that his youth would no longer live on. Life as a child was a dream that he never wanted to wake up from. Though desires weren't always fulfilled, a child lived to the fullest, running around the fields or playing in the gardens, and had time to do whatever. But it all ended once coming of age arrived, when duties and responsibilities took over and determined what Lorenzo's life would be like. Out of the way, Filio, warned the man on his wagon as his horses carried across the road. With an effortless shift of his feet, Lorenzo moved aside as the wagon rode past and blew a gust of wind through his hair. His mind shifted back to the road in front of him. This is the dreadful world I live in. He sighed as he stared at the sun getting behind the blue ocean. Salt lingered in the air, and he breathed it in deeply. Closing his eyes, in these moments, he found life to be okay. The peacefulness and natural beauty eased his body, but Lorenzo eventually opened his eyes and found himself standing in front of his home, ready to go rest and repeat the same day tomorrow. As he was walking toward the wooden door of his cottage, he saw someone standing in his flower garden. As he crept closer to the garden, he noticed a slim figure with short, wavy auburn hair, admiring his bed of cosmos that had bloomed a week ago. The person stood there for the longest moment, smiling down at the purple and yellow flowers. Pardon to interrupt, but you seem to be entertaining yourself with my cosmos, Lorenzo said with a smile, but a hint of unpleasantness in his tone. Though irritated that his personal belongings were being viewed without permission, he is a polite man. He meant to present himself as a stern and polite person. I hope he doesn't touch them. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just saw them on my way to the village, and they're just too precious not to admire. It's all right, Lorenzo replied. I really don't mind. It's just alarming that there's a stranger in my garden. Oh, I'm terribly, terribly sorry. The stranger looked down at the cosmos one final time with a sigh. I just admire the sight of this garden. It brings me back to my childhood. Lorenzo perked up his head. At last, someone who remembers life as a child. Of course, it's no problem. This garden is for everyone, he smiled warmly. The man walked gracefully out of the flower bed and back into the path to the village. Well, in that case, you will see me promptly. Arrivederci. He waved at Lorenzo with a smile and turned toward the path. Arrivederci, Lorenzo whispered back. Spying him from a distance, Lorenzo saw the figure disappear down the road. That's something new. He smiled at himself standing shocked in his front porch. Dusk was arriving soon, and still he had to prepare his supper. Pots and utensils clinked against each other as Lorenzo cooked fish with a few vegetables. Guarda contentoni. He started speaking himself as he stared around his whole kitchen, eyeing his belongings. The money I worked for just to be spent on things I need to survive, yet I still struggle to live. He sat down in his chair with a heave, stared at his hands on the floor, then his hands again. Unconsciously, he got up, grabbed his paper and pencil, and sat back down at the table. Lorenzo's hands grazed over the piece of paper with such elegance. Not even knowing what he would draw, he released his feelings, thoughts, and self onto items made of trees. This truly satisfied him. The simplicity allowed him to express himself with no judgment or hate. While the whole world, including himself, ate him alive with criticism, there were still moments he lived for, where it was just him, Lorenzo, and the things he loved. Love. It's something magical that occurs in everyone's dreams, but does it exist in reality? No, it's just a pain, an illusion of what could have been. That thought concluded Lorenzo's evening as he peacefully slept, head resting on the table and arms dangling as his pencil released from his grip. But oh, how Lorenzo dreaded to wake up. Lorenzo kept seeing the same man admire his cosmos in the following days, though sometimes the man wouldn't come. Lorenzo knew the next day he would. Lorenzo found out who was called Alexander. You know, I've never realized how beautiful everything is, Alexander sighed as he held the petal of a fallen cosmos. Even death carries its own beauty. I suppose you could put it that way, but that's your opinion, not mine. You don't see the beauty, Lorenzo. How could you not? It's right in front of you. Everything from life to nature. How could such a repetitive, cruel life be beautiful? Even cruelty has its own beauty, you know, Alexander said. But aside from that, life doesn't always have to be the same. There's so much out in the world you still haven't experienced. Lorenzo cocked his head to the right, eyeing Alexander, crouched and his auburn hair trimmed to just barely reach his eyes as his olive skin gleamed against the sun. Perhaps there is something out there. Eventually, Alexander's presence seemed with Lorenzo's dealing too. He felt excited when Alexander was there, Even if they didn't speak, he felt giddy to be acknowledged. Lorenzo loved to end the day and make it the next to just see Alexander. Though it was barely 12 in the afternoon, but these moments lasted for such little time, and the day would soon again repeat itself in its awful, hazy ways. One warm, cloudy day, Lorenzo brought out his paintbrushes, paints, and canvas to paint this lovely, gloomy day. Nearby, he could hear the crunching of the rocks and the sliding of the sandals against the rocky path to his home. Without turning around, he continued to paint his cogwheels in the clouds. I see you've entertained yourself today, commented Alexander as he circled Lorenzo, eyeing the way Lorenzo lifted the brush from his palette and applied his strokes on the canvas. It's quite a tragic day, though, don't you think? That's what makes it so worthy. The emotion is written all over the sky. I suppose you have a point. Alexander wandered into the garden. Lorenzo began to incorporate Alexander into his painting with the sweetest colors he could make. It was nearing midday when he almost completed the painting. Let's go out, Alexander Brently offered as he stared at the hills. And where exactly would we go? There's so much to do in Italy. Where could we possibly not go? With that, Alexander started walking toward the path to the village. Lorenzo began to doubt. I really don't want to go, but I hate to say no to him. Alexander paused and turned to face him. Time is running out. Are you coming or not? He asked with gentleness. Lorenzo audibly exhaled, shook his head in disapproval, and looked down to the ground. Yes, I'm coming. The two walked to the village that Lorenzo despised visiting except to get groceries. They went into the market. Mele, Arance, yelled the vendor with the fresh fruit stand. They stopped to check out the variety of goods from fruits to furs along the way, unlike other times in the past 5 years. Unlike other times in the past 5 years. Lorenzo actually quite enjoyed this odd trip to the market. Lorenzo ended up buying fruits and new sandals for himself, and Alexander bought a book from a small, isolated stand in the corner. What'd you decide on? Lorenzo asked as he pointed his head toward the book in Alexander's hand. It's a philosophical book, Plato's 5 Dialogues. Have you read it before? Yes, it's quite a book, Alexander said. It teaches us that our knowledge is only gathered when explained by our true beliefs. Lorenzo gives him a questionable look. And what do you believe? Life is a journey where we learn from our mistakes and get to live off them. That is where our true knowledge comes from, our mistakes. Lorenzo had made many mistakes in his life, but he still found himself in the same place each time. He felt his journey had not yet begun. Do you believe your journey has started? The words slipped out of his mouth. Lorenzo just needed to know he was not the only one left behind. Of course. Well, it's not been an exciting journey, but yes, I believe so. Alexander smiled at Lorenzo as he looked him in the eye. The sun was about to set and dusk about to rise. The two had finished their visit to the market and headed up to the hill to Lorenzo's cottage. As he was about to say farewell, Alexander blurted, Do you believe you've begun your journey, Lorenzo? No, I don't believe I have, Alexander. What makes you say that? Your life is so amusing, filled with color that everyone can see aside from you. I don't think you understand, Lorenzo said. Life is a curse, but I somehow managed to go through each day without giving in. Yet everyone else sees me as a living dream. He stared at his front door, then glanced up one more time to look Alexander straight in the eye. I'm just so tired, tired of trying so hard to live a life where I never wanted, tired of being perceived as a giddy person everyone believes me to be, tired of seeing everything I've ever loved to move on as I stay trapped in this cell with no key. A silent whimper pierced the air. Lorenzo's tears dripped down his face to the gray, cold stone steps on his front porch, wetting the moss growing inside the stones. A strong force pulled Lorenzo in, with warmth enveloping him. Alexander held Lorenzo in his arms, not in sympathy, but wanting him to feel the way he never has wanted. The moon rose, gleaming on the ocean as its reflection wavered in the ripples of the water. In the hills, Lorenzo lay on the grass with Alexander by his side, staring at the stars that held a special place in their hearts. Orion shimmered through the night sky with his club held tight in his hands. His belt shone the whole night. Do you believe there's a higher power, or divine, or whatever? Alexander asked as he pointed at Ursa Major. I don't know. I'm always doubting what to believe. If there really was one, why have I lived my life like this? What did I do to deserve this agony? But in the end, I realized. Lorenzo paused and turned his head to the side to face Alexander. This is all my doing. I chose my path to be this lonely, though I hate to admit it. It's true. He said with a hint of sorrow. You don't have to be alone anymore, Lorenzo replied. I know, and I realize that now with you. Alexander's lip twitched and a small smile crept up as his dimples began to form. He recited an old saying, I was once told that a star can illuminate the world, but a handful can enliven the whole galaxy. Lorenzo entwined his fingers with Alexander's. They both returned to admiring the stars that shone a future that they could not see. They spent the night entranced in each other's love and warmth. Lorenzo spent the following day searching for Alexander. There was an absence that couldn't be filled. No one admired his cosmos, no one flew conversation. He went to the market, but no one recognized Alexander's descriptions. So Lorenzo ventured to the small stand where Alexander bought his book, but it was empty, abandoned a while ago, with only a box of tattered old books, including a copy of Plato's 5 Dialogues. On the top of the box, he began to walk to the trail that led home. He wouldn't just leave. It's not like him. He would never leave me. Lorenzo got home as soon as night fell. By the corner of his garden, he spotted Alexander once again admiring his cosmos. Where have you been? Lorenzo questioned nonchalantly, as he didn't want to sound angry or disappointed at Alexander's abrupt appearance. I had to leave. Please forgive me, Lorenzo, but I came to speak to you. He's frightened. This isn't going to end okay. Did something occur? No, it's just you have to understand something. I'm leaving. How could he possibly leave? He'd been through this plenty of times, but this time affected him differently. He felt betrayed, as if he'd been stabbed in the stomach. Please don't leave me. Take me with you. But he hated a plea. He didn't hold people back. Lorenzo kept his tone cool. What do you mean by leaving? It means you have to move on with your life, Lorenzo. Alexander snapped as he switched his gaze to the trees ahead. Why? Why does he have to be just like the others? Why does he have to become the one person I truly care about? I really don't want to. You have to believe me. I love being here with you. Love the sensation of being in our little world where only we exist. Alexander wrapped his hands around Lorenzo's arms. But you need to move on. I've helped you, and I believe you can do it without me. Take me with you then. Lorenzo gave him a determined look. He wasn't letting him go just like that. You don't understand. I have to go. The words came out painfully. Alexander dreaded every bit of it, but he could no longer hide the truth. No, you can't. Lorenzo sobbed as he stared at the empty hearth. You won't leave me. The cry came out. His face scrunched with such disappointment and sadness, he let out a silent scream with every bit of emotion exploding within him. His calloused hands wrapped around Alexander's neck as he threw himself onto him. Resisting the urge to hold Lorenzo in his arms, Alexander stood motionless like a doll. I face every day in this world with pure criticism and have lived in futility. Lorenzo muffled into Alexander's shoulder. You showed up though, and ended all of it. Please. He looked up into Alexander's soft, honey eyes. Don't go, he pleaded, putting his fingers through his. Alexander didn't get to finish a sentence before he even began. There was no excuse anymore. Sit, he demanded Lorenzo to the ground next to the flower bed. High above, once again, were the constellations shining for the two below, guiding them to their next step. I'm not really here, Lorenzo. I never was. I don't understand. You're right next to me. What is there to prove you're not really here? This, Alexander took in the whole front yard with his hands. This is just a fiction of your mind. You created me, Lorenzo, but for good reason. Alexander reached out to hold its hand, but Lorenzo flinched as he stayed numb, but held his astonishment for later. This isn't possible. I see you, feel you, touch you. You're lying. It's all in your head, but whatever you felt was real, and I believe that this has sparked your beginning. Alexander reached out one more time to calm Lorenzo down. This isn't happening, Lorenzo said as tears dripped down onto the soil, wetting Alexander's hand. Alexander cradled Lorenzo as he began to feel a heaving of his chest. We were just admiring the stars as we laid in the grass, enjoying the silence and darkness of the night. We spoke our hearts out to each other, Lorenzo whispered. Their foreheads collided and the ignited heat built inside Lorenzo. Alexander slowly placed his face in the nape of Lorenzo's neck, and his unsteady breath tickled. When I leave, I'll tell the stars about you. Alexander pulled away from Lorenzo's arms and gave him a forced smile with a squeeze in his hand. Lorenzo couldn't bear to look him in the eyes, but just gave out a small laugh. Look at me, please. With burning red eyes and dry cheeks, Lorenzo fixed his gaze on Alexander. I've met many people throughout my life, but no one has ever made it as glorious except for you and the moments we shared. Which is why I'm desperate. For once in my life, I was able to live and experience life, but with you by my side. Lorenzo stammered that final sentence. And it will continue to bleed glorious. I'll always be in your memories. I won't go anywhere. We've created many galaxies, so remember that I'll always be in the sky enlivening it. No more tears will be shed. Side by side, hand in hand, the night carried on. The final time Alexander would be in the grass with Lorenzo came to an end as soon as dawn rose. This is how Alexander left. Not because he disappeared, but because of that feeling of when you finally have to leave such a great moment that you wish never ended. That's what overcame them. Lorenzo woke up in isolation. He turned to his side, hoping to see Alexander, but knowing that no one was there. Just a tiny part of him believed Alexander wouldn't move, but it was time he carried on. Alexander was right. Lorenzo's eyes had been opened to a whole new world he was ready to explore. Whether he'd be alone, he knew at night the stars above would guide him, and the cosmos he'd encountered would remind him of the moment he'd begun his journey. And that's the end of my story.
Thank you for that journey you just took us on, Alessandra. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So we have just a few more readers. Our next reader is Jade Pretel, who is zooming in from Rancho Cucamonga. So welcome, Jade.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to be reading a poem I wrote that I call The Ballad of Marie Annette. Not one with heart could brave a glimpse, see the troubling vignette, a sorry view commiserate the poor Marie Annette. She traveled with the carnival, borne on a bed of straw, dreamt to her own cradle songs Marie's life ended Ma's. Raised by those who sought to please the fairgoer's demands, clown or hooper couldn't she be with gorgeous circumstance. Ah, trapeze then, ringmaster slurred with coinage in his eyes, not once did any stoop to fear their shiny toy's demise. For years she swung above the crowd, her hair a ruby blaze, but skill was none to looks, and so the crowd saw frame and face. Ringmaster glimpsed the girl's allure and sloshed a wicked threat. She'll be our star for wide and far, the doll Marie Annette. Plaything she was, it aches to say, for young and old alike. Consumers pulled the strings that kept Miss Anna out of sight. That ward ought to have been her home, I quote the paper boy. Marie Annette has blown her top, the fare is not the same. A quandary surrounds her crime, but some preach what they saw. She changed, estranged from a pure soul, no longer hemmed nor hawed. A flighty act above the stands, more wild than before. Ruby embers burned too bright, and rapture was no more. The pure abused turned sour, unkempt, to many strings in debt. It be a dare to try and greet that mad Marie Annette. Backstage disputes were kept hush-hush, alas, I know for sure. Ringmaster saw no more allure, saw no more use for her. Regard had kept his show a turn, and it was not in flow. So quick as whip, the choice was made the night before the show. Tonight and then the fair would move, drive to the next address. Lights were turned upon, extra on the perfect ring of death. Now strings are not made to be pulled, death not to be forgot. Perhaps the light was lit too bright, not all are always caught. The shock was heard throughout the crowd, a glint in one man's eye. An issue that still warrants haunt, two smiles faced the sky. Goodbye, our sweet Marie Annette, we know it was the fame. I think too soon they ceased to cry, the fare is not the same. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have two more readers. Let's see where we're at. We've got next up, Sonia San, who is zooming in from La Quinta. And Sonia, let's see, or Sophia, sorry. Welcome, Sophia.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity. So I have one poem that I'm going to read, and then I'm going to start a little bit of a short story because it is kind of long. So I'm just gonna probably get halfway through that. So my poem is called Atlantis. Never coming back melodies and wistful dreams sing their way through the waves, your heart lost forever, somewhere under the sea. Memories in clear blue and wet sandy toes enchant your magical song that follows the loud crashing waves with magnetic force. Lover at the shore, alone and lost, keep dreaming and you will realize maybe those are tears from Atlantis in your hair. And then the short story is called The Letters You Wrote Me. January 1st, 1944. Dear Edward, I miss you. What else to say, dear brother? Though you have only been away for 2 weeks, it already feels like eternity. Mother claims that you'll be back soon, though I'm not too sure. She has a habit of sugarcoating her words. Papa is as busy as always, even with the youth gone from New York. How is the war? A pitiful question, I know. And yet I can't help but ask. I've heard from Mr. Lawrence that when he served only 27 years ago, he described it as a horrendous prison that shaped boys into men. His words, not mine. Life goes on. Hours seem to stretch into days, months, years without the presence of you. Jokes are seldom now, silence stays quiet, and we no longer attend the movies for fear of going forever without you coming back. Church every Sunday is stiff, with almost half the youth missing. I am sorry that my letter is cut short, Edward. Mother is calling me to help her with Sunday dinner. Happy New Year's, brother. Take care and don't die in the trenches. We need you. I need you. Love, your sister, Beatrice Rose Farrell. January 6, 1944. Dear B, where would you be without me? Lost in the darkness, stumbling around blind and dumb, of course. It's obvious that I'm a necessity. It was kind of you to write, though. First things first. What did you and Mother make for dinner that night you wrote me? It was probably delicious. I long for a home-cooked meal. Gruel during training just doesn't taste the same as Mother's chicken pot pie. I suppose I should be thankful, though. I've heard bully beef from the trenches doesn't have any substance at all. How has the cafe been faring? Now that sugar's being rationed out, I suppose our beloved New York hasn't given up on sweets yet. Have you come up with any new desserts yet? Knowing you, B, I can already tell that you are agitated by the limits that our country has set on food. The baker has her limits, I guess. Mr. Lawrence is a pitiful man who does nothing except drain the life out of the youth and the healthy. He dwells on the hatred of the war. I would advise you to stay away from him and live out your own youthfulness. Don't worry about me, though, little sister. I was born close to the date that the war ended. I'm a natural soldier. At least, that's what my sergeant claims. But I promise I'll make it back to you. I would never leave you. Beatrice, before I end this letter, I need you to promise me something. I know you'd say yes, of course. You're not the same little girl who cried to me about your dolls, but I know your character. This is important, so listen to your wise older brother. I need you to promise me that you'll keep being smart, witty, kind, and compassionate. Don't let this war change you, no matter how much this world begs you to. Stay yourself and don't let me come home to a stranger, to the closest family member I've got. Look after Mom and Papa, care for the cafe, keep being responsible. Promise me, B, that you'll forever and ever be my little sister. Save me some good food. Forever your older brother, Edward Farrell. January 11th, 1944. My dear brother, it sounds as if the war is not truly a horrible thing. Only you, Edward, can make such a dangerous situation into something light. Since you wish to know what I made for dinner I prepared on the 1st, it seems that I cannot deny you anything, seeing as you went to fight for our country. The tomato bisque that I made only seemed appropriate to eat by the spoonful with our snowy weather. Mother baked our bread into croutons and Papa sliced, your favorite, fresh apple chunks, if only to honor your commitment to the army and keep you here with us. Did you know they're filming a movie called The Yanks Are Coming this November? I wish that you could come home by then and see it with me. I remember the fond memories we spent there together, watching movies that would revive our dreamy childhood. And though I didn't know it then, it was still our childhood that we were living. I now know that this dreadful war will probably measure up to something not short of our First World War, only 20-something years ago. The cafe's sales have declined slightly, but not enough to affect us yet. Yes, rationed sugar is horrible. Sugar-free desserts are something that people would prefer not to buy, and yet we will all have to learn to live without it for a while, I assume. You are right, dear brother. I've always marveled at the way you could always read me. I now know that you can see through my words too. A baker does have her limits, especially when a war is ever so prominent. You insult Mr. Lawrence, and yet I can't find any untruthful meaning in your words. Everything you claim is true, except Mr. Lawrence does not simply drain young of our youth. He practically draws it out with every single pessimistic word he utters. Forgive me, Edward. I cannot refrain from speaking the truth. Mr. Lawrence is an old fat man who I don't even think served in a war other than to eat. I'm running from my mouth, for goodness sakes. Nothing a proper young woman can't handle in the times of war, though. My dear Edward, I cannot deny you anything, as I specified earlier. I will do what you ask, but only if you make me a similar promise. Come home alive. My brother, do not act rashly. Keep your hot temper in check. Do not defy your elders. And most importantly, be the brave older sibling that I need. Write me soon, Beatrice Farrell, your loyal sister. So that's not the end of it, but it is kind of long.
Thank you, Sophia. And for anybody out there who wants to hear how the story ends, I will drop the link into the chat. Let's see. And actually, here we go. Here's the rest of Sophia's story. And our next reader and our final reader is Katie Shin, who is zooming in from Palm Desert. And Katie also happens to be our first teen poet laureate. And so welcome, Katie. We have been working together, and she and some other of the Teen Poet Laureate cohort have been organizing a group called the Imperfect Poets. So maybe she'll tell you a little bit about that too. But if you want to connect with other teen writers, go to this link. Let me see, actually, if I don't put in the HTTPS, then it won't be a live link. So now there's a live link. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Katie.
All right, thank you, Katie. And also, this is going to get a little bit confusing because we do have the same name. So that's something we've had to work around, but thank you for giving that wonderful introduction. And I was just going to say, thank you to Katie and Inlandia for hosting this journal. But I also want to add that if you're interested in continuing your creative opportunities, don't just ignore Inlandia. I mean, this journal is honestly just the start. And for me, when I submitted to the Teen Poet Laureate competition, which was co-hosted by Inlandia, I definitely did not expect to become enwebbed in this literary community that was right in my backyard. But I think that once you have this open door, it's up to you to take those opportunities. And I can honestly say that the best part of this has been meeting, fellow creatives. And that's why I'm really glad that you all are here today, because, creating art isn't an isolated activity. And I think that the moment we speak to one another and communicate, that's when we can all grow, not only as artists, but also as people. That being said, there is a link in the chat, which Katie has put. If you want to be featured on the account, we're a small but mighty group, and we will try and kind of create how you want your art to be showcased. And it's honestly just another opportunity for you to, I guess, kind of explore the different ways that art can be presented. So if you're interested, be sure to click on that link. And we also have an Instagram. It's just The Imperfect Poets. But I highly encourage you to check out either us or Inlandia, because there are so many opportunities out there. And even from the short snippets that I've heard from you guys, I can tell that you're a really skilled group. And I would love to hear more about you, not just this journal. But with all that being said, today I'm going to share a poem called Visit from Weather Fairy, and it's about my experience with mental health and also the experience of my peers. I wonder if I'm strange, and the voice always calls back yes, because a voice inside your head is a little bit fog until it condenses to sparse droplets, then thunderous rain, then drowning showers, then flood. Aqueous hands shoulder me to the cumulus, the aches and quivers of teal waves beneath. Another lapping wash will come with trust. These tides will wean. The Weather Channel is never accurate. A small mistake until it cancels your plans for you. Splinters the wood door, scraps fly from the fourth spackle repair, and the people at the home improvement store are your family now. They ask you, share your bleeding hearts with other militant mourners. Quote, when mom asked me why I'm sad, I realized she stopped asking if. And what does it mean when you are hazed for a person? And they say I need to heal, but I need a goal for that. And that has always been ask a different question. I ask if I'm needed, and the voice always calls back yes. I wonder if I am strange, and this time I answer back. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And let's see, I'm going to come back and remove. Okay. So I just want to give a major shout out to all of you guys today, and to those who were not able to be here for whatever reasons. We had some really fantastic writers and artists in this issue, and I just can't wait to see where life takes you. So for our viewers at home, please visit inlandiajournal.net to read the entire issue and check out the art. And for our teen poets and writers, if anybody wants to connect with Katie and the crew, and you didn't grab the link from the chat, feel free to write to me at Inlandia and we will get you that info. And without further ado, I just want to say thank you for being here, and we will see each other again in this virtual space before too long. So have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you and good night.